Hi, I'm Anna Yosin, and this is Whole-Soul Living. Today we'll be going over the Trikonasana triangle pose. This is a very commonly used pose within the asana practice, and oftentimes, it's not necessarily executed with proper alignment. That being said, everybody's body is different. Everybody's bone structure is different. So you do the best you can with keeping your alignment. Make sure you prioritize the alignment that's going to keep you from getting injured. Don't worry about if you're looking like the picture of the yogi in the mountains, on doing all the crazy things. Focus on what feels good in your body. The rule of thumb, if you feel any sharp pain or any actual pain, ease off of it. We don't want that. And just be really mindful of any injuries you might have. So what you want to do to start out with, let's start with the feet. The feet should be somewhere in between your wingspan and your shoulders. So we're going to bring the feet nice and wide here. Now I'm going to start with the front foot, the left foot forward. So with that, I'm going to rotate externally this left foot and keep this right foot. It can either be at about, parallel to the back end of your mat or a little bit of an angle, even up to a 45-degree angle. So go ahead and get yourself in that position, orient that with your legs. We're gonna start with talking about the feet, and then we'll move up to the knees and the hips and so on and so forth. So take a look at both feet here. Now, you should be able to pull your toes off the floor. So if you're putting so much pressure on those big toes, that's not good for the alignment of your foot, your toes, your knees, your hips, and so on and so forth. So pull those toes up. So you're going to push into the base of the toes, pull the arches up, and especially for this back foot, let's push into the knife side of that back foot. Okay? So from there, that might change things a little bit. Little pro tip here, when I roll in, when I push a lot into the tip of the big toe, that is one of the factors of what causes bunions, okay? So you're pushing that toe and it wants to go out to the side. So let's even that out, push to the outside of the foot, push to the base of the big toe and pull that arch up. Especially in the back foot, a lot of people want to roll in there. So let's be mindful of that. Even on the front foot here. Now, if I roll in, what happens to my knee? My knee goes in, and that's not good for my knee either. So we want to think about stacking that knee directly over the ankle joint. That is going to require a little bit of openness in this front hip. So that's if you're bending it. And we want to think about that same openness in the hip while keeping your legs straight for Trikonasana, for the triangle pose. So with that, have a play with bending the knee, opening that up, bringing the knee out, and then keeping that straight there. If your hips do not have the openness to do that and that knee wants to come in, slide this back foot forward in the direction the toes are pointing. So not forward towards the front of the mat, but that will allow a little bit of wiggle room in your hips so you're not totally trying to stack your hips open. If they're a little bit tight, you can orient the back hip a little bit forward. Now have a play with wiggling your hips side to side and see if you can land right in the middle. So we want, again, stacking the head to stack right over that tailbone. So if I'm kind of sinking into my hips here, that's not stacked, right? So we want to stack that open. Again, that's going to require a little bit of openness in this front hip. So be aware of how that makes my knee feel and if that changes things with my feet. So I want to start with pushing into all four corners of the feet, opening this front hip, and then adjusting your back foot accordingly. Everybody's anatomy is a little bit different, everybody's bone structure is a little bit different, and your body is different every day. So adjust it to how you need to where you're not feeling pain from the pose. Okay, so that being said, let's talk about this back, right? So in triangle, we reach forward and down. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll like really try to extend the side here as the hip bends down because they're really trying to reach down and then reach back up. Now, that's okay if you have a lot of flexibility, but I want to talk about the lower back and the SI joint. That joint at the very, very bottom of your spine is the most common joint that gets a lot of bulging disc action. And talk about the movement of the spine. So your lower back here, it's meant to move forward and backwards, a deflection and extension, but it's not meant to move laterally. So if we try to force that lateral motion here, we're gonna put unnecessary pressure on those lower back vertebrae and the discs there, and you could end up over time injuring yourself, and we don't want that. So that's why when we go into this triangle pose, that lower back kind of stays in one spot there, and we lean forward, right? You've seen this before. We reach forward. So we're keeping that lower back from laterally bending too much. The part of your spine that laterally bends is this thoracic spine. So here, right? So that part of your spine is meant to move side to side, forward and back, even twist, right? The lower spine here, not so much. We don't get a lot of lateral motion there. We can go forward and back, but not laterally. So keep that in mind when you're coming down into that pose. So let's go back to our wide stance here. Our arms should be in alignment with our body. So we've got a wall right in front of us, right behind us. So if I'm here, straighten that out, drop the shoulders down. And just a note about active engagement of the legs. We want to push down into all four corners of the feet, pull up on the arches, squeeze those legs in. We're squeezing in and up on the pelvic floor muscle, on that inner abdominal wall muscle. And then from there, we can reach forward, so we're keeping that lower back stable. Another point of that is if we go too far side to side laterally with our back, we could overstretch the ligaments, the tendons, the connective tissue there, and then our lower back becomes less stable. And we don't want that, right? We want to keep it nice and strong and stable. So from there, we're reaching forward, we draw the navel in, and then we can bend through the thoracic spine. We still got a wall right in front of us and one right behind us. Here's a little pro tip. If you've got a wall, go to a wall. Bring your feet on the wall, just like so. You can be an inch or so off. And the arms will be flat on the wall. Okay, so notice how this feels, right? If this feels weird in this front knee, just bring that back foot a little more forward in that direction. And from here, we're sliding forward, and then from the thoracic spine, coming down, right? We want to keep this top shoulder, for me it's the right shoulder, on the wall. And we're going to reach up with the right hand, reach down with the left hand, so we're separating the shoulder blades, and then from there we can reach down. Now don't feel pressure to go all the way to the floor. If you don't have that flexibility, that's totally fine. Use your block here. And then from there you can spiral your ribs open, pull your shoulders away from your ears, and from there, gently look up if it doesn't hurt your neck, right? So check in with those feet, make sure you can pick up your toes, pull up on the arches, squeezing those legs together. We're stacking the hips as best we can, stacking those shoulders as best we can, and looking up. And then from there, to get out of it, we reach up with the top hand, and back, looking forward again, okay? So try the other side. We'll stay on the wall because the wall is our friend here. Hip, feet a little wider than shoulder length, but not quite as far as our wingspan. And this side's gonna be different. Every side is different. So find your alignment there. Traditionally, this front foot goes right through the middle of the back foot, but not everybody's anatomy will allow that. You can bring the heel to heel in alignment that way, so we have the same line. But if this hip is really, really tight, you can bring that back foot a little more forward in the direction of those toes, right? So again, we want about a 90 degree, so that back foot is parallel to the back of the mat. And just kind of have a wiggle to see how that feels with your hips, okay? I'm gonna go back to the wall here. And then from there, pulling up on the arches, checking my feet, checking my ankles, checking my arms. So I'm opening up this front hip. And then from there, I'm reaching forward. I'm pulling this inner abdominal wall in and up. And then from there, bending from the thoracic spine, reaching down, stacking the shoulders as best you can, stack the hips, and then reach those hands up. Now, if I do want to go deeper, but my torso is super, super tight, what I can do is I can bend this front knee, and then we go into an extended side angle. We want to keep that knee over the ankle. And then from there, we can come back up and switch. So that's a basic of the triangle. Few tips there with the arms. What's common to happen is we're not totally straight here, so just try to keep everything in like the same plane. Also keeping this back arm wants to fall a lot. And then the other really common thing is that people lean forward when we do any sort of bend there. So make sure you're totally straight, whichever angle you are. So see, if I go here, I could want to naturally go out to either side. So as best you can, just straighten that out, tuck the tailbone under, opening up that front hip, and then coming down into it. So it's really important to warm up your hips before doing this. So any sort of hip openers you might have, you could do like the butterfly, a straddle stretch, just tilting the hips forward and back, or even tucking those legs side to side before you going into the triangle. So I hope this was helpful. Another key factor, with the breathing. I have a whole nother video on this, the difference between thoracic breath and belly breath, okay? So we typically want to do an ujjayi breath with our asana practice, which is breathing in through the top of the lungs, then the middle, and then the bottom when we expand that rib cage. Now, if you're doing just pranayama or meditation, it's okay to expand that belly, breathe all the way into the belly, and then breathe back out. But if we're doing this in an asana practice, we want to make sure we keep an activation of the lower abdominal wall, the inner abdominal wall. So think of it like zipping and lifting up. And then from there, you can breathe into the bottom of the lungs, which is at the bottom of your rib cage. So expanding that, but I'm still engaging here slightly, pulling in and up on the pelvic floor. Now, if I don't do that and I breathe into the belly, what happens is I'm not as supported in the pose. So I'm gonna have you try this with me. So now we know the triangle, we're here. Let's get in our first pose before we go in. Have one belly breath, we're relaxing the belly, breathing in, and then exhale, lean forward and down, and just kind of see how that feels. See how the back feels. See how the hips feel, and we'll come back up. Now, from there, squeeze those legs in, squeeze the inner abdominal wall in and up. So we have this activation here. We breathe in all the way to the bottom of the rib cage. We're still getting that full breath, keeping that support here, and then reaching forward and down. So that gives you much more support within the actual pose, so that way we protect that lower back and the legs. So pay attention to your breath as well, where you're feeling your breath, how deeply you're breathing, if you're breathing into your belly versus your your rib cage, right? And there's different, one is not right or wrong in overall, but you're going to get more support for your body, especially your back, if you keep that thoracic breath, rib cage breath, as opposed to a belly breath when you're doing these types of poses. So that being said, I hope this helps. If you have any more questions or if something is unclear, leave that in the comments below. If you have any more requests or just any general comments, again, go ahead and comment below and I'll be happy to answer and assist. So with that being said, I wish you much love, a beautiful and wonderful day. Thank you for watching and namaste.